Hi everyone, I'm VantageEmblem, and I'm joined with my friend Davagato today on Davagato's channel to steal his intro, apparently. Hi.
Hi everybody, and yeah, Vantage, you did it. I didn't even have to think about it. You did it perfectly. Glad to have you.
Yeah, so you want to talk a little bit about what we're talking about today?
Sure, today we're talking about Wraiths. And you're like, Wraiths? As in like Pikmin? Yes, Pikmin Wraiths. We made our own with the help of some of our friends and with the help of each other. We kind of took it to the extreme and said, what if we had more Wraiths aside from the Plasm Wraith and the Water Wraith?
And we're going to talk a little bit about why we think that more Wraiths would be a cool thing, alongside just talking about the origin of these different types of Wraiths, what they could do.
So we're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about those Wraiths.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course.
So, without further ado, let's begin.
First up, because we have lots to go, Therum Wraith. This thing is cool. Check it out.
So we have some things we want to talk about with each of them. Basically, we want to say what the Wraith is, the area it would be in, kind of its inspiration, its elements, and what Pikmin types would be involved, and how it would attack. So would you like to start with the kind of overview of the Therum Wraith?
Sure. This is the Therum Wraith, Therum coming from like iron ore. So it's a Wraith that has inclusions of rock deposits or metal or like iron bits and chunks. So it has a rusty appearance. And this is the Wraith's basic form. It has a large arm that is like covered in these deposits. And I'm thinking, like the Plasm Wraith, it can morph its morphology to match whatever form it wishes. So maybe it can like put more plasma into that arm, or maybe it can like shift around and become like a giant cube. It could have any kind of like mineral kind of appearance.
The Wraith was kind of started out as the idea of a Rust Wraith to create a Red Wraith to fill the primary colors, because there was a Blue Wraith, the Water Wraith, there was a Yellow Wraith, Gold Wraith, whatever, in the form of the Plasm Wraith, and we figured there could be a Red Wraith, maybe Rust. Thus, the Therum Wraith was born, with the idea of it having kind of its arm being analogous to the Water Wraith's roller, but instead with chunks of iron instead.
Yeah, so it's like integrated into its being. It's kind of cool like that, because a lot of Pikmin Wraiths either need obstacles or they have parts of their body that are integrated normally. There's never been an in-between. Granted, there's only two Wraiths, but we've seen Wraith with weapon and Wraith that is the weapon. Never Wraith that has absorbed the weapon.
Did you say there's only two Wraiths? Because we're going to talk about that.
We are.
Anyway.
But that's later.
That's later. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the area of this Wraith, what it could look like?
Sure. As we discussed earlier off-call, I really like the idea that it could exist in a place that's full of mineral-rich soil. So maybe it like sucks up chunks of iron from the soil through its lifespan. Maybe it's a quarry. Maybe it's like an old junkyard full of metal scraps. Somewhere where there'd be metal in abundance, enough that it could pick out the parts that are actually rusty and give them some new use.
Yeah, and I think rust as an idea for either a hazard or just this being some sort of very physical crushing Wraith that just has a rust aesthetic is really cool. It doesn't necessarily have to be a hazard, but like, it could be neat. I'd be down. I mean, not sure what it would necessarily do if that were the case, but it could be fun. That being said, the idea of like the Rustworks kind of area being played out as a full in-game area makes me very happy, especially because Pikmin 2 like had that aesthetic a little bit to it with like the Whisper Wild and the Yieldstein. Like, I just like the idea of rusty old human junk in the Pikmin world integrated in with its creatures of some sort, like the Gatling Goink or the Man-at Legs.
Yeah, like especially how nature kind of reclaims it, but the rust and the metal remain vigilant to not be absorbed. So it's like they have to exist in this weird amalgamate way where it's like, yeah, it's nature, yeah, it's rust, but they kind of have to tolerate the same space.
So we've talked about what the Wraith is, its area, its kind of inspiration, elements we touched on, rust, but like what else, and what Pikmin would be involved?
That's a good question. I think we did talk about a little bit the idea of red Pikmin or rock Pikmin, but maybe there's something else we can do here. What do you think?
I mean, I've always thought that metallic Pikmin types would be interesting and a way to break away from the color limitations. If there were gold, silver, iron, whatever kind of Pikmin we want. If there's a rust mechanic, it could be an element that maybe only affects these new Pikmin, which could be fascinating. At the same time, this might be a little bit of a limit to the Ferrum Wraith's power, so who knows? That being said, I love the idea that its crushing arm is ineffective against rock Pikmin, just because I love those little guys.
They are fantastic, and they usually, at least in one of our cases, are pretty good against Wraiths. They can't be crushed, and they can't be pierced to be eaten, so they're perfect choices for the Plasma Wraith. But as for the Ferrum Wraith, maybe rust is a mechanic. Maybe these new Pikmin types that we're imagining in this scenario, like, they come out of the onion fresh and shiny, but as the day goes on, they get rusty, and the Ferrum Wraith can accelerate that rust, making them perform less good. Maybe you need, like, a spray to revitalize them or something. That's certainly a mechanic, sure, in talking about it, but they did crazier things before.
I mean, imagine if the yellow flowers from Pikmin 4's logo were just like a polish, like a polish spray of some sort that would allow you to like rejuvenate your rusty Pikmin. As a matter of fact, it goes back to an idea from Pikmin 1, where Shigeru Miyamoto talked about you would put the sick Pikmin in a certain area and the healthy Pikmin in a certain area and getting more into micromanaging, but he thought it was too difficult. That being said, he did tout the enhanced controls of the Switch in the Pikmin 4 reveal trailer, so maybe. But that also may be going down a rabbit hole of too much complexity. So, who knows?
We'll see. It'd be a cool idea to see them revisit some concepts that were around at the end of Adam and Eve, but were ditched at the beginning of Pikmin.
I mean, they did it before with the two-player battle that was kind of jokingly teased in interviews from Pikmin 1 and some other stuff like that in Pikmin 2, so I wouldn't be shocked. I think a lot of Pikmin's development is cyclical, and it really relies on the technology getting more advanced to be able to do what they want. For example, a rust mechanic would be really resource-intensive because every single metallic Pikmin or whatever would have to physically change appearance in some way to denote the rusting, so who knows?
They have pulled it off, though. I mean, like, looking at the Wraiths and how a lot of their textures are just magical camera tricks and overlays, they could do it. It's just a matter of, do they want to, and how bad do they want to do it? Because so many things, they come up with in Pikmin series, and then we find out they've been cut later on because time constraints, or they had better ideas, or there was just no way to work it in perfectly.
Oh yeah, like one of those, the rock Pikmin originally had different different body shapes, but they were eventually turned into just the uniform rock Pikmin we see today. And that's probably for resources and just simplicity, but, it's cool to see.
We'll see what comes back in Pikmin 4, which is now real.
I can't believe it. All right, you want to move on to the next Wraith?
Sure. So this Wraith was designed by our buddy Luther, Shadow Raptor 101, who has a lot of experience designing Fanon enemies and a lot of creatures of his own design that could belong in the Pikmin series. And this is the one of them, the Rime Wraith. Rime as in like a frost covering. So it's glacial.
So as you can see, this is an ice Wraith, and it would make sense in another winter-themed area, similar to the two we've seen in Pikmin thus far, but maybe taking things a little further. Elementally, it could be a new ice or cold hazard that I know so many people have suggested before in the Pikmin series, but who knows, right? It could also be just rock Pikmin immunity, because piercing. Honestly, so many things do piercing, so maybe. It could be interesting to actually take that rust concept from earlier and to make a chilling mechanic where things grow colder and start to freeze or thaw depending on different factors. Just could be interesting, but I'm not sure how much that really pans out.
I like that, though, like the idea of a frostbite mechanic where certain Pikmin, like maybe their flowers wilt in the cold areas and they can't do as much, they can only carry half their normal carrying capacity. We could have a lot of ideas that would work with this Wraith, but as for what the Wraith actually is, I think it's ice-based and it would do ice things. And as basic as that is, I like it.
I think one thing that's interesting, if we were to jump back to these frost Pikmin and an ice hazard, a lot of people are really not keen to the idea of a Pikmin with a lot of like a fur coat that would be immune to cold, because it would just be a duplicate of fire as a hazard, but I don't think it has to be, especially if the fur coat by having them in your squad could give warmth to the other Pikmin in your squad because they're part of the cuddle pile.
That's so cool.
Right? And so it could, protect the Pikmin in your squad by having X number of these Pikmin that are also immune to cold, which would make it just a different hazard from fire because it would operate. And you could actually say that they're a liability in your squad with fire because perhaps they, cause overheating or something. I don't know. Just if temperature is a mechanic, I could see that being a cool way to do it. But what do you think?
Oh my goodness, I just had an idea. What if they're orange Pikmin and they have like little body furnaces inside themselves that act as heaters?
They
like
set
a complete
themselves
subversion.
on fire.
Well, not like that. I mean, like they just are really, really warm. Kind of like a lot of Pokemon that are fire types have like a flame sack that lets them heat up. Like, what if it's a complete subversion and the Pikmin that can combat cold aren't cold, they're just really warm?
Well, I've always thought if there was cold in the Pikmin universe, it actually might make sense for it to be another hazard that red Pikmin can tackle. Which is why I could see, okay, red Pikmin can initially tackle these, but you have to just use red Pikmin. At the same time, these new cyan Pikmin, whatever, can heat up the other Pikmin and therefore allow you to tackle this hazard on multiple fronts. But who knows? I just like the idea of differentiating hazards so it's not another poison versus fire situation.
Yeah, I like that too. Oh, speaking of this Wraith, the hole on its face. You're going to see this trend in these Wraiths. We decided to keep this hole on almost all of them, this gash, this wound. And there's a special reason for that. In Olimar's Pikmin 3 Deluxe notes, he mentions that it might be some sort of psychic wound. And there's like minor traits of like, oh, maybe this is an evolutionary creature from the planet, surface. So, it brings the idea, are these things actually human? Are they remains of humanity? Are they some sort of ghosts or apparitions, memories of what humans used to be? And, we don't have any answers. But we decided that it was so important that we kept the wound on all of them for that reason.
I will say, it's kind of creepy thinking that the Pikmin are following Wraiths in Pikmin Bloom, but I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, technically, Pikmin Bloom's present day. So what if that's the beginning of the end?
Oh no, Pikmin Bloom's the apocalypse.
Yeah, Pikmin Bloom is the apocalypse and the beginning of the timeline. Before everything happens, Pikmin cover the Earth, and then something bad goes wrong, and then they're what's left in Pikmin 1.
Something went horribly wrong. All right,
something goes horribly wrong.
Something goes horribly wrong.
You want to talk about these attacks real quick, and then, move on, I guess?
Sure. We didn't really cover the area too much, though. So
if you want to go back to that, that's perfect. Yeah, I'm down with that.
Oh, the reason I go back to the area is because we've seen frost minimally in Pikmin as a part of the environment, like the icy slide in Pikmin 3. But we haven't seen areas that are like sheets of ice over lakes or like icicle-ridden stalactite caves. That'd be kind of place where this thing belongs, I think.
And as a matter of fact, if we ever see caves back, which I think is doubtful, but it could be cool, this would be a great enemy to include in an icy cave.
Yeah, I like that.
And
now,
it
how
just
would
kind
it
of be a
attack?
spiritual successor. Oh yeah, how would it attack?
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it was a spiritual successor to the Water Wraith. Because, it's just a Water
What
Wraith
if they
that's
all
frozen
are?
over.
What if they all are successors to the Water Wraith, and the idea that they appear in the unique environments, provide a unique challenge, and have unique defeat parameters?
And give you nightmares.
Yeah, give everybody nightmares. And we do enough caves. Yeah, yippee, more nightmares. We do enough caves that I think that not every cave would have a Wraith, but it'd be like 1 in every 5 caves. So you're never sure which ones are going to mess you up.
Well, who knows? Maybe there's not caves. Doesn't matter to me. I just think they're cool.
Yeah, same. If there's no caves, whatever. But it'd be cool if there were more, is there something in this cave? Is there something chasing me? Moments.
As for this Wraith and how it attacks, I could see that's a cool introductory Wraith, if you wanted it to be, in that its top half doesn't really stretch, but its legs do, making it much slower than other Wraiths. Especially if you're using red Pikmin to counteract it, I think it could be interesting to kind of show what Wraiths can do using the initial starting Pikmin types. And also to teach players that this game's a little different. Red Pikmin are also immune to ice. Just could be cool. I don't know. I don't make the games, but
hey, no reason why, if Nintendo doesn't make Pikmin 4 very good, we couldn't make our own kind of game with these kind of concepts. They don't copyright ghosts, so with a little bit of tweaking, we could make these ours.
But right now, we're setting them firmly in the Pikmin universe because, hey, we love Pikmin
Of course. We do love Pikmin, and not to say Nintendo is perfect, I understand that they are a company, but I'm excited to see what Pikmin 4 holds in regards to these kind of ideas. How far can they push the enemy types?
Speaking of, would you like to show our next one where we really push the enemy types?
Absolutely, but before we do, thank you, Luther, Shadow Raptor 101, for designing and guiding my depiction of this Wraith.
Oh yeah, Luther's great, just A+ in creature design specifically, really looked
thank
up
you,
to.
Luther.
Yeah.
Both of us, we grew up looking at Luther's stuff.
All right, ready to move on to the spookiest one? Not really,
let's do it.
But one of the spooky ones.
Oh, that's pretty good.
All right, this is the Trench Wraith. So this Wraith has a roller, like the Water Wraith, except it's a battery, which, yes, they exist in the Pikmin universe. See Pikmin 2, where Duracell's all the rage. In the US, anyway. It has a bunch of metallic components in it, and it conducts electricity, which means that it's an electrical-themed Wraith. Actually, it is kind of like the idea of two Wraiths stuck together, kind of a positive and a negative side, both coming together and being forced apart with more psychic wounds than usual. We have some metallic components put in, and this is just terrifying. Imagine this double Wraith dropping on you in the dungeon and driving its little, unicycle at you. I hate it. You have created a nightmare.
Oh, I'm glad it worked. That's the whole point. But yeah, I always imagine this Wraith belonging in some sort of area that is like an old electronics workshop, or in the 90s they had those repair places like Radio Shack. It would just have a back room with corkboard and a bunch of batteries laying out. What if the dungeon is just some guy's repair desk and this thing's living there?
Pikmin has a Radio Shack as Radio Shack goes out of business. It's the Radio Shack cave. That makes me so happy.
Yes, and it would also make sense because he has a bunch of soldering materials in a bin, and those get picked up by the green part of the Wraith, and then a bunch of wires and nails that are not rusted get picked up by the right side, the purple part, so they create hazards on its body. So maybe while it's rolling around, those wires occasionally spark and make chains. So you have to use the right type of Pikmin at the right time to deal with this thing. All while it's moving.
To jump back to its area for a minute, this Wraith could be in a lab of some sort, or a shop or something, just to explain kind of where the Wraiths come from. This would be a perfect Wraith to kind of explain the lore of the Wraiths as the leader and their Pikmin investigate what could be a facility that made Wraiths, or a facility that had Wraiths, and kind of how they've evolved and changed since they were unleashed or created. We're not really sure the story of the Wraiths in full, so maybe this is a direction, some mad science experiment, essentially. This is the Frankenstein's monster of Wraiths. But who knows? Hey, would you like to talk more about the multiple Pikmin types being involved in this? Because I think that's a great idea.
Sure, let's just say, for simplicity's sake, we have yellow Pikmin and rock Pikmin, and maybe winged Pikmin in this case. That would be best. And how I see it happening is you could throw yellow Pikmin on its body, and that way they'd be safe if the electrical components start sparking. All the while, it's rolling around even when you attack it, like the Water Wraith. But it doesn't stop if you attack it. It keeps going. So maybe you can use winged Pikmin to pull apart its halves and make them separate. And this would cause it a moment of complete vulnerability when it would stop dead in its tracks. And you could use rock Pikmin, of course, to avoid the rolling of the battery, but also to just destroy this thing and rip it in two. And maybe that's how you defeat it. Maybe you just rip the pieces apart, and they collectively heal themselves slowly. So you have to just destroy them.
Some of the best bosses in Pikmin have reasons to use every single Pikmin type. Even if you're just using one, there's a benefit to just using that one type, if that makes sense. And I think this could follow that trend, especially if this boss is designed in a game that's rather alinear compared to old Pikmin titles. Having just access to one of those Pikmin types could make this boss fight doable and fun, where having all of them could make it much easier than just doing with one alone. But who knows? I don't know. Again, I don't make the games.
Yeah, we don't make the games, but hey, it is our imagination area here, so we can have fun with it.
Absolutely. So, other things about how it would attack, I can imagine this thing kind of overcharging if it got to a either a certain point on the map with electricity, or maybe got down to half health or something, where it moved faster and started to spark more from the battery. And it could potentially even split into and 2 wraiths as it loses one side or something like that. Although maybe it just sticks together the whole fight. Either way, I hate it. It's terrifying. That being said, if you manage to separate it from its roller, I could see both wraiths splitting off and you having to pursue both of them down to get 2 different treasures after such a tough encounter.
Oh gosh, I'm just imagining how terrifying that would be. Like, it runs past a bunch of electricity hazards, and they spark it, and here it is, bolting across the map, rolling at the highest speed, steamrolling like a fast car, everything in its path. I almost want to make that, just how scary it is.
What I just thought of from what you said was, imagine you get it down to like half health, and one of the wraiths splits off and starts panicking, like the water wraith in Pikmin 2, while the other, enraged, starts picking up its roller and just smashing down like an earthquake, just stomp, stomp, stomp. I don't know. I just like the idea of dynamically changing attack patterns.
Yeah, when you split them up, they get really mad. I like that.
And of course it could reabsorb the other half like the Plasm Wraith, which would be interesting.
Multi-phase fight. This thing seems like a formidable opponent.
The formidable oak, am I right?
You might just be right. Maybe this thing does appear in some sort of corridor-ridden cave. But I do like... maybe it's like both. Maybe it's like it appears in the walls of a house or something. And that's where it actually gets you. It was born in the workshop, but it chases you behind like the sewers of the house or something. We don't know.
It's an electrical outlet cave. I mean, actually, that wouldn't be a bad idea. Given that Pikmin 4 is having a new perspective, going in a more vertically aligned cave could be interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to see something like this where it plays with the entire idea of industrialization versus nature and then how nature deals with that. Yeah, I'd like to see a house. We even see a walled garden, which is unusual for Pikmin.
Yep.
So maybe we'll see something like that.
Speaking of unusual for Pikmin, would you like to start to intro the next Wraith? Because I think it needs a little bit more explanation than these ones that have come before.
Sure. Okay, our next Wraith, before we reveal it, is something very special. This Wraith is somewhat pseudo-canonized. And what I mean by that is it takes an existing canonized enemy and then takes a little bit of the development information and then goes crazy with that. So it's like a fan fiction canon fusion.
Yeah, it's kind of pulled from existing canon.
More so than the other ones.
Yeah, and it's because of the files that are left over from development, which detail a Kage Bozu, or a Shadow Wraith, which is what we've created here. It's an early development version of the Water Wraith that we don't know much about, but we're going to theorize about. So, would you like to take it away with kind of a description of what this thing is?
Sure. So, the Kage Bozu is just simply a file name that the Water Wraith uses sometimes, Kage meaning shadow, and Bozu from Amebozu or Umibozu, as in like a monk with a bald head. So, it's possible at one point the Shadow Wraith was an actual creature that was in place of the Water Wraith. Maybe the Water Wraith was always going to look like it does when it has purple Pikmin attack it. Maybe that was the Shadow Wraith at one point. Maybe it roamed the overworld. Maybe it roamed the Undercaves. We don't know anything about it. All we know is one remnant, which is Kage Bozu, in the file name of the Wraith. So with that little seedling of information, we ran with it.
The purple Pikmin are originally black Pikmin in the files, which would have matched with black Pikmin and white Pikmin. It's weird that the Water Wraith is weak to purple Pikmin. There's nothing in the game that like tells you to throw purple Pikmin at it, and it's kind of a weird like, I guess it's time for the boss fight now, and that's the only reason you would ever think to do it. The Shadow Wraith, if there was a shadow hazard, maybe like the SMOKEY Progs hazard, that could explain maybe what purple Pikmin were originally immune to when they were black Pikmin, and it also could be kind of what evolved into poison, and those were different directions, shadow and poison, that were kind of, split apart, and we got the purple Wraith, or purple Pikmin we have now, which still have some weird anti-fear remnants, and the white Pikmin we have now, which have an anti-poison remnant. Maybe that was all one hazard at one point, but I don't know. Could be cool though. And I think the Shadow Wraith or at least the Water Wraith is a remnant of a time where the purple Pikmin's ability to be super effective against the Water Wraith actually made more sense, which is probably during the Kagebuzu era.
Thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot, and this is our video. Oopsie. But you're right, and furthermore on that, inside the Water Wraith, inside the Kagebozu files, inside all of that is the Water Wraith actual file name, which is man. But before that, there's a prefix, and its title is Black Man, not as in like a person, but as in purple Pikmin, comma, man. What? What does that mean? Like, it was designed to be a humanoid form that was related directly to this new Pikmin type. That's in the file name.
So, there's definitely some weirdness going on here. Not only that, the Water Wraith seems to pathfind okay outside of caves, as proven by the Piklopedia. Perhaps the Shadow Wraith was supposed to drop down from the sky, especially because the early beta version of the Perplexing Pool had this large kind of mound-like ramp where the spawn area is now. Maybe you would climb up to the sky and then this thing would drop down and pursue you. Curiously, this is in the same location as the Smoky Prog from Pikmin 1. And that kind of begs the connection. Is the Wraith, the Water Wraith, which would have been another shadow enemy at this time, just the next step in the evolution of the Smoky Prog enemy, which is mysteriously missing from Pikmin 2? I don't know. I didn't make the game.
But you bring up an interesting point. Prima Guide, canonized or not, calls the Mamuta a Piku Lord, and then, of course, the Prog is supposed to be a malformed Mamuta, and the Mamuta also looks a little bit like the Wraith in terms of its body shapes. So maybe they're all connected somewhere.
Well, here's something interesting for you. The Mamuta and the Water Wraith serve opposite purposes. And you might be like, what do you mean? The Mamuta plants Pikmin, and it allows those Pikmin to basically just become flowered immediately. The Smoky Prog uproots Pikmin with its roar. Curiously, the Water Wraith drops the Plecophone, which uproots Pikmin. So if you tie together the Prog and the Water Wraith as the creatures that uproot Pikmin or have some sort of tie to uprooting Pikmin, kind of works that they're the opposite of the Mamuta. So, who knows?
Yeah, there's something there. I want to expand on this with a bunch of people you included in the future video, but I will drop a breadcrumb right now. Our next Wraith is something special because it ties together the Shadow Wraith and everything else. It's the Smoky Wraith. And you're probably like, wait, what? No, that's not a Wraith, that's the Smoky Prog. Aha. What if it's not the Smoky Prog? What if the Smoky Prog is a baby Wraith, and this is just an imaginary in-between stage? Think about it. It has the Psychic Wound, its roller is just the large pearl, and what if the Wraith in Pikmin 2 is just an adult form of like a Mamuta or a Wraith? What if they're all connected? And it makes sense when you look at one thing, and that's that the Smoky Prog is a bald creature found near water that has two glowing eyes, likes things that are shiny, in this case maybe it's treasure, hangs around ship bases, and is disturbed by your presence, and will not leave until it is defeated. But most importantly, it doesn't go away. It can uproot Pikmin, and it hangs around your base. It doesn't go away. What's up with that? That's interesting, because it parallels the original Umibozu legend, the yokai itself. So even though I make all these arguments, and I started the theory about the Wraiths being connected to the Wraith theory as the yokai and the Umibozu and the Amanyodo, what if the original yokai inspiration in Pikmin, the original Umibozu, was the Prog?
Well, what's interesting is the Psychic Wound idea of the Smoky Prog. I mean, it kind of proliferates through the Smoky Prog story because it's hatched early as you destroy its egg. Otherwise, it doesn't come out at all. So you may be the one who caused the psychic wound by damaging it when it was a baby. How does that feel, Olimar? Huh? You're going and fighting children now? Jeez.
It wouldn't be the first time. He's beat up enemies before. Well, technically they're mimics, they're not children. Never mind. No, never mind. Spotty Bulbarian.
To be fair,
he destroys those little bulborb larvae. Never mind.
He kills newborns with his fists.
Well, to be fair, they were going to eat his entire army.
Well, I just want to let you know that he also fights things with newborns, because I had someone point out to me that all of the Pikmin are newborn. They're literally, like, they're born within a month of, in at least Pikmin 1, within a month of being discovered. So, Olimar attacks by throwing newborns at things. I don't know what to say. I'm cutting this from the video, but it's funny. It's
fine. We can cut that part, but yeah.
Olimar chucks newborn babies. Woo!
So the Smoky Wraith is our interpretation of what happens if there was a middle stage between the Smoky Prog and any of the Wraith forms, especially those with rollers. How would it operate? So I think it would appear in a distance spring-like area, and maybe it would roll around on its pearl and do the same things as a Wollywog, but with a roller attached. So it would hop around, maybe jump high, maybe roll around like it's a glass marble sounding thing, and that just and it just flies around the area really fastly as it slickly moves, jumping and hopping and rolling.
It also could be an omnidirectional roller boss that kind of moves in any one direction without having to switch its physical facing angle just because of its pearl, which could really, lock-on mechanics could be cool or whatever. I don't know. It could be neat. I also would like to point out that this thing is kind of like a tadpole in terms of even the original Smoky Prog's tail. It's kind of trail of shadow. Just could be interesting.
Yeah, I always thought Prog was like a pun on frog. Maybe it can mean something else, but I kind of went with the tadpole approach because of that. I know the Japanese name of the Smoky Prog is like Dodoro or something similar, where it's like it's made of mud or found on a muddy road. That's what its name means, something with mud. So maybe it's supposed to be like this, like yokai, or the story about like this little child who was found on the side of a road and like born from the river. I don't know. There's this whole possible connection there, but I'm just gonna boil it down to this creature is a muddy child, and I kind of captured that.
I think Prog could also be Pearl Frog, which is probably what the English localization was going to, in my opinion. That being said, it also could just be, prog rock. Someone who really likes that style of music turns into a Smoky Prog over time, don't you know?
Oh my goodness, I like that a lot. That's very silly. That's perfect.
Anyway, would you like to talk anything more about this, or you want to move on to the big spooky page?
Good question. I think that if this Smoky Wraith did appear in an area, I'd like to dial it back to Pikmin 1's beta footage, where we saw the Gulix in the Forest Navel, and it was kind of ominous. In the creature reel, it's the beta footage that we get to see. It's in the final game, but the idea of a creature that's bioluminescent and in the darkness, and it's just all you see is this glowing pearl, glowing eyes, and this psychic wound casting light, and that's all you get to see until it comes close enough to kill you.
That actually ties into like the idea of the Plasm Wraith and the mysterious life form kind of form chasing you down. It's terrifying. I hate it. I love it.
It works.
All right. So you want to move on to the big thing or anything else?
Yeah, I think let's move on.
So here you can see all of the Wraiths kind of set out like evolution mode from the Smoky Wraith, with the exception of maybe the Smoky Prog being a form that's even more larval, even more juvenile than the Smoky Wraith.
Yeah.
So you could go from the Smoky Prog to the Smoky Wraith, and then from the Smoky Wraith you could evolve into the Water Wraith, the Plasm Wraith, the Trench Wraith, the Rime Wraith, the Ferrum Wraith, or the Shadow Wraith with or without roller. Granted, we didn't really talk too much about the Shadow Wraith without the roller, but just everything we said about the Shadow Wraith is true, except it's this terrifying thing walking on two legs coming at you. Good luck.
It will mess you up.
Oh, another thing, the pearl inside of the body of the Shadow Wraith glows because it's related to the Smoky Wraith, which I'm going to mention now because we've talked about the Prog and the Smoky Wraith before. But yeah, it's terrifying and spooky, and I love it.
So this page actually serves a second purpose. The ideology here is that the pearl gets maybe absorbed as the Smoky Wraith ages, and that changes the chemistry of the creature. So maybe the Water Wraith, the pearl is mostly absorbing like water particles. The Plasma Wraith, the pearl remains in its normal form, and it's like golden. The Trench Wraith, maybe the pearl is electrified or is full of minerals that cause electricity components. The Rime Wraith, maybe the pearl is frosted over. The Farum Wraith, maybe the pearl is full of iron deposits. And the Shadow Wraiths, the pearl stays exactly the same. It doesn't get absorbed, but rather sits in the body of the Wraith and glows from the back through a psychic wound that has manifested on their spine.
Something interesting, this ties into that long-standing Plasma Wraith theory that it's gold because it absorbed the gold from Olimar's ship. If this is the case, the Smoky Wraith could very easily have just had its pearl exposed to all of this gold plating, and that's what caused it to be the gold coloration it is. Who knows?
Only one way to find out, and that's to keep playing Pikmin.
To hold Miyamoto hostage until he gives us the answers.
I think he's ready to give them up. He'll give them up without being provoked. He's so excited to show us Pikmin 4.
Oh, I know, his shirt. He made me so happy when he showed off his shirt. I bought it. It's great. It's now one of my favorite shirts.
I too stan the P shirt.
The P shirt.
It's funny.
I don't know if we cut that or not.
I almost feel like I want to leave it in because it's so stupid.
It's so stupid. All right.
So this is our Wraith chart. This is what we made in this video. But that begs the question. Do you guys want to see more? Do y'all want to see more Wraiths?
We could cover additional types too. Like, we could look at Bulborbs, we could look at Arachnorbs, we could look at Spectralids, we could look at pretty much any type of enemy in this game. Breadbugs, we can just expand upon that if you want. So, if you want to see more, feel free to let us know in the comments below. And also, remember to like and subscribe, because this creator I'm working with right here, Davogado, I don't know if you know, he's kind of a legend in the Pikmin community, okay? So, you know, you should just stick around and get some more quality Pikmin content.
Thank you for the encouragement, especially to the viewers. Yeah, I definitely want to revisit some of the topics that kind of lifted my channel, my original channel in the first place. So I'd be really happy to keep working with you and other Pikmin community members to make that happen.
Please do, because I'm excited to see it.
Me too. You'll love to see it.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess we should wrap things up here.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching.
My name is VantageEmblem. This is Davogado. I'm stealing the outro too. And remember to like and subscribe and, you know, hang around here. You can check out my channel. It'll be linked somewhere. And you should definitely check out everything else that's on Davogado's channel.
Yeah, if you like Fire Emblem, please check out Vantage's channel. He covers
I also do
stuff,
Pikmin. I want to make it clear.
Oh yeah, you cover both.
And on that note,
thank you very much for watching.
And I'll catch you around. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.